for this show. We running a little late as is, but we back in effect like most Def and Quali. This is the Running with War show. Kyle Means here. Drew Stevens on the left of me, from my left, stage right, and and Gabriel Wilkins sort of in the low post in this equation. We gotta rotate. Get a mismatch going. Get gave out the paint.
He
But
trailing the break, ready to pop that three.
yeah, you gonna hit the corner. you gonna get the efficient three. But we back in here, man. Another session with the fellas running with war. Those were the days. I titled this one. Those were the days. We're gonna do a little bit of looking back in a lot of ways because we're the main focus of the show. We're looking back on the Bulls season, and you can look back in that way and on the Bulls season in a lot of ways wistfully, even though it didn't end that well. There was quite a few highlights to the season, and we'll touch upon some of that as well as what needs to be worked on, what needs to be tended to in the off season coming up, and we should have our guy Stephen Gardner coming on with that as well, who's been doing the write ups for War on War Ready on our uh, Substack page. He should be coming on uh, in a little later with that. But Drew gave we got some other topics. Vivian Stringer retiring. That's worth definitely a look back at one of the great coaching careers of all time and an incredible legacy there. And today talk about legacy and you know the anniversary of D Rose getting his MVP hit today. That was 10 years ago, and just an incredible moment. Didn't again like the Bulls season didn't play out. Like his Bulls career didn't play out the way that we expected or hoped for. But at that time, that peak of time, was really an amazing, moment in time for Chicago and Chicago basketball. We'll, sort of disseminate our thoughts on that a little bit. But you know, I guess just getting into this show, um, we got we're in the second round of the playoffs now. There's still the most important basketball left to be played, but I was sort of thrown off thinking about it coming into the show. Was like just how much less basketball there is now than there was even just last week. Like, half the teams are out the paint now, and we only have we was used to like 3-4 games a night for a few weeks. Now we just got 2 games a night. Currently, this evening we have the Boston Milwaukee game, the series that's playing game 2, and we have Golden State and Memphis. We're gonna do a little bit of a breakdown on those 2 series coming up, but just those 2 games tonight, and pretty much either 2 or 1 game going forward for the rest of this playoff season. And I don't know, just starting off, what you guys thoughts on how the we transferred, since we last got together, things transferring over from round 1 to round 2. Who you looking at as particularly strong right now, or you know uh injuries, of course, have been continue to be an impact. And what's on you guys' minds foremost right now as we look at these final 8 teams that are left for the championship?
Just looking at trying to see how they're gonna bounce back tonight. off of a tough game one loss. Desmond Bain, I know he's been dealing with some back issues, but I know he's gonna try to give it his all and give it a go tonight. I expect to see a big game from him, especially with the way he helped carry Memphis, with the way that Minnesota was blitzing Ja and making life real difficult for him every time he sought to go inside the rim in round one. They're gonna need more than 9 points from Jaren Jackson. I thought was great when he showed that he wasn't getting in foul trouble. He didn't get in foul trouble much at all in game one. That was a big difference. If he can continue that against a Warriors team that isn't really that strong in the interior, I expect them to even up the series, even though I know a lot of people after game one are asking a lot of questions as to whether or not the Warriors are going to sweep Memphis. I think Memphis is going to respond in grand fashion tonight, and I really expect those young guys to really continue to grow and take that next step like they've been showing that they're capable of from the start of these playoffs, as we saw them overcoming deficits multiple times against a Minnesota team that really had them on the ropes but didn't know how to finish the job.
Yeah, that was a hell of a game on Sunday, man. And to your point there, it seems like it was, as tough as it was for them to lose that game, it seemed like the type of game where we saw a team mature in front of us a little bit more, a young team become more aware of what it takes to win in the playoffs. That could mean a lot for Memphis, just in the remainder of this series, let alone the remainder of their playoff journey. Whether it extends beyond this series or if they have to regroup for next year. But definitely that was an impressive game on Sunday. And, that may be, I don't know if it'll be the most competitive series of this round, but it may stand to be, when you look at, Philly sort of being in the hole without Joel Embiid against Miami. And, that's just a tough thing for everybody to take, even us observers who are, not really choosing sides. You want to see the best go against the best, and not seeing Joel against Miami, at least at the start of the series, we saw the impact yesterday, and how it left them really lacking in that game one in Miami. And this Boston Milwaukee series, great performance by Milwaukee in game one. Not so much here in the first half, at least tonight. So we'll see if they can make it up in the second half. But Boston really jumped out on them well, and I could see that series actually being sort of like a back and forth. It may go 7 games, but you may have like 3 or 4 20 point decisions on this in this series, because those teams, when those teams are clicking, either one of those teams are clicking, they really click. And Boston, not so much Boston, but definitely Milwaukee seems capable of giving up a game or two, in a series. Especially you look at the fact that they gave up one to the Bulls. That's sort of a good of example as any there. But I guess the remaining series, in the West, Phoenix and Dallas, we saw in that game one just how much it's going to take for Luka to pretty much carry that team, and into just competing in that series, and definitely to try to beat Phoenix in that series. It's going to take like a Herculean effort from Luka, and he may be up to doing it. He'll probably put up the points. I saw today, like he's averaging as much as Jordan in the playoffs right now. Of course, less sample size at the moment, but he's putting up those numbers, and so he's willing to do it. But just what else does he have? Somebody else is going to have to step up for that Dallas team if they're going to compete against Phoenix. But we got Steven on the line here. I'm going to bring him in a minute. But first, Drew, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this round and how starting to play out?
Just kind of piggybacking off you two, I'm mostly intrigued by Boston and Milwaukee and Golden State and Memphis. Those are the two series I got my eyes particularly fixed on. Especially this Boston and Milwaukee series, man. Just trying to see if, the way Milwaukee plays defense, their willingness to give up 3-point shots to certain people on the Celtics, that comes back to bite them in the butt more times than not. Enough, obviously, for them to get put out of the playoffs. So far, like you guys said, as we speak on a Tuesday at 7:37 at night, in this game, in Game 2, Boston is doing their thing and looks like they're headed to tying this series up. But this, to me, is the series that is probably going to be I know you said you expect there to be some blowouts, maybe more than one blowout.
Possibly. I mean, it could definitely be close the whole way too. But it's just like from the first. I'm just judging off the first 2 games so far.
Yeah, just looking to see how Boston. How they. We heard a lot of talk about how the Cavs and the Bulls snuck up on a lot of teams early in the season. Boston kind of, they righted the ship in the second half of the season. They were, I think, the top defensive team. Really turned things around. Had a very easy opponent in the first round against Brooklyn. Now to go against a team that they can't bully, they can't push around, they can't do the same things to Durant or to Giannis that they did to Durant. So just seeing how that kind of resolves itself.
And that's gonna be so meaningful. Just their grit and their willingness to defend every game. Like, the Bulls, we saw that in one game, in that Game 2. Where they really got down and they really seemed to affect what Milwaukee was doing on the execution, but they couldn't keep that up. Boston has the ability to keep that up throughout the entire series. So if it is going to be like close game after close game, it's going to probably primarily hinge on the effort and the effectiveness of that Boston defense.
No doubt. And then just switching gears over to what you guys are talking about with Memphis and Golden State. I know every game is kind of it takes on a life of its own, but Memphis really screwed the pooch on that one, man. Clay missing some free throws, Draymond getting ejected, Jaren Jackson actually not being in foul trouble and having a hell of a game himself. Like I don't know, man. That's a tough one to lose for them moving forward. It's just one game. They can just as easily regain home court advantage if they can take 3 or 4 in Golden State, but they got to be looking at that and shooting themselves in the foot a little bit.
Yeah, you think so? I mean, I was kind of going to throw that to Gabe. Gabe, you want to jump in on that because I know you follow. You like Memphis a lot. Do you think that they, I don't know. Do you think that they really gave up a good opportunity on Sunday to not only compete but take control of the series?
Well, anytime you have a game and you have an opportunity to win, it's an opportunity. But then again, the State was coming in with fresh legs. This was riding real high off of a Friday win in Minnesota, clinching that series, coming back from double digits. That's always hard to do, especially when you have a quick turnaround like that and you going from a Friday night game and you getting out of, Minnesota late at night and then you going into Sunday afternoon with a national television tip-off to kick off the conference semifinal. So if it was any game for the taking, I felt like for Golden State, Game 1 was the game. Did that. Now, granted, it was a lost opportunity, but if you're Memphis, you got to go in, to tonight with the same attitude, like, hey, opportunity, the series, but we still got another home floor house where we know we got our crowd behind us. And if we come in and set the tone from the jump, we can win this game and be able to, just get back on the plane to Oakland for the weekend and do what we got to do to Frisco. So, I mean, it's a business as usual thing, but a quick turnaround like that, pretty tough for teams. Especially, I don't care if you're young or old. Go from the thrill of a series win to now being thrusted into a new series like that. Fill out game. Game ones are always fill out games, and anything can happen in a game one. So you can't really out of a game one, although it was a missed opportunity for Memphis.
Steven, man, what's going on? We got you outside again, man.
Yeah, hey, y'all be catching me fresh off of work, man.
All right, I appreciate the effort, man, to come on, and because I know I'll be just coming off of work. I'll probably be trying to chill, but I appreciate you coming on with us, man. Outside is kind of rough, man. I saw some today, man. They talking about we only had like one sunny day in the last 40 days, man. You got you got the Cubs and Sox playing. I was almost thinking they were playing in October, man. The way if it weren't for these basketball games going on, I'm thinking we having a subway an L series for the championship or something, man. The way this weather is, but glad you're moving around, and I hope you're keeping warm out there, man, Steven. But just to throw it to you, man, what off of what we've been talking about, man, what's your thoughts on the semifinals as they're unfolding right now, man? Who you looking at? What do you think some of the advantages lie right now?
Well, unfortunately, because of injury, we've been kind of robbed of a potentially very special series between the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Joel news is rather depressing just because we've gone through so many different injuries to superstars in the playoffs the last handful of seasons. And just when we thought we finally got the opportunity where everybody was going to be back in the fold, there was no COVID issues. Like, we just felt like we're going to have a clean slate as far as injuries for every team that was contending. And then that happened in the first round, in the very last game, no less. At a time where he potentially could have been brought out the game because the game was pretty much decided at that point. It's tough to see that, and unfortunately, I feel like Philadelphia's season is going to end in these games that he's not playing. So if he ends up coming back for Game 3, that mountain to climb over that tough and gritty Miami Heat franchise and the team that they have right now, that 2-game deficit might be just too much for them to come back from, unfortunately. So unfortunately, that series is probably going to be ending in short fashion. I predicted a gentleman's sweep unless Joel comes back and he's like an even better version of himself than he saw in the first round. The other series out east, the Bucks and the Celtics, that's gonna be, in my opinion, the most entertaining series because both teams are matched, and I feel like it's even more so evenly matched now with Chris Middleton being out because Milwaukee takes on a different style of play without him, whereas when they have him, they're more dependent on him and his isolation scoring, which is obviously a good thing, especially in crunch time. But over the course of the game, when you have an isolation-heavy player against a defense that's so cohesive and they have so many tactics and schemes that they can use to take a player out of their rhythm, like a Chris Middleton type. Like we saw what they just did to KD, who has like 7 inches on Chris Middleton. So you can imagine them applying that same game plan in a similar fashion to him and phasing him out the game. So I feel like that's kind of how Milwaukee was able to get Game 1 was because they brought their own energy, which is an energy that can be matched from Boston's side, and Boston's not quite used to that because of course Brooklyn couldn't do that. So they kind of got shell-shocked in a sense with that, and then Giannis was just able to take over with his playmaking, which is a little different than what, of course, Kevin Durant can present as being a scorer first, second, and third. Giannis has a little bit more of a complete game on the offensive end as far as in the playmaking department. So that's kind of a big difference with that series that I'm going to be looking forward to moving forward. Going back to the West Coast, that Grizzlies and Warriors series is going to be very interesting. I think all the games will be close. But in the end, I feel like the experience and just the overall poise and composure that the Golden State Warriors encompass in close games is going to end up outweighing the youthful exuberance and athleticism that the Memphis Grizzlies have. And this will, of course, end up being a big-time key in the experience for this Grizzlies rendition moving forward. But it's gonna hurt them just not having that much experience compiled against a team that has arguably more than any team in the playoffs right now. And then swinging to the other series with the Suns and the Mavericks, I feel like that might be the quickest series if the Warriors don't sweep the Grizzlies, just because from my perspective, I'm looking at it from Luka Doncic and the Mavericks. What can they take away from, or what can they dictate in that series with the Suns? Like they don't have an edge in the paint. They don't have an edge in rebounding. They don't have an edge in just like overall scoring and variety of scoring. They're pretty much playing Jane as far as their approach. They have one way. They have Doncic doing everything, and then everybody else is pretty much spotting up outside of Jalen Brunson doing what he can in the mid range. Like that's as far as versatility offensively and especially defensively, they don't have much to go to, and they don't have that much coming off the bench either. Spencer Dinwiddie has been extremely inconsistent for them so far. So just kind of looking at that, like where can they go to dictate or exploit anything that the Suns present, and even more so, how can they adjust to anything that the Suns are dictating? Like they're pretty much in the bottom, so it's like Doncic had 45 last night, but over the course of the game, it really didn't have much of an impact if you watch past the box score because of A, how the Suns were defending him, and B, how the Mavericks couldn't really stop anything that they did on offense. So that's kind of my short portion around the table for what's going on in the playoffs in the second round so far.
Thanks, Steven. I was muted there, I guess.
You good?
But yeah, thanks for that input there, man. Like I said before, it's gonna take a Herculean effort from from Luka to really keep that team, not just competing really in that series, let alone have a chance to win. But yeah, that's probably gonna look like a quick series. Maybe the Philly Heat series will rival that, unless Embiid comes back on the white horse. We'll see. But some good. I'm hoping it's not too much of a letdown because the first round was, you said we had more teams. There was more things going on. There's some interesting things going on. Surprisingly, not only the one. Games. We didn't have any game sevens, did we, in the first round? Yeah,
no game seven.
Yeah,
that caught my eye too.
Yeah, that really you typically have at least one in the first round. I know I heard a couple people. You hear it every year, but people mention let's go back to 5, best of 5, and everything. You ain't with that, Steven?
Nah. Because there's a lot.
What do you think it's too fluky?
First round series. So you taking 2 games away. You taking away a lot of money from the league, and that's not obviously.
Well, yeah. That's what I said too. Yep. Like it's pretty much all ABC and Disney that's on that. Like I would think that TNT probably wouldn't even trip on it, especially to Shuck and Chat. They'll probably be good with extra days off, but definitely the 7-game first round. That's been like pretty much the entire time that ABC has had the main NBA rights. Though that's been sort of a constant of the first round. So you really not something you're gonna see go away. But there are going to be some years where we have the matchups just are in that way where nobody really has to go there, even with a very competitive series like Memphis and Minnesota. That they just didn't find a way to get that last game. Probably primarily because of a lot of breakdowns with Minnesota's execution. Like they didn't lack chances, we should say, but they just didn't make it happen in the end. But we're gonna get into some like I said, get to the Bulls half. Both current and past Bulls talk in the latter coming up at about 8:00 time as we turn over the hour. But I want to go into some storylines and stuff, some quick stuff, go in and out of. I guess one thing I wanted to bring up was the whole Brittney Griner situation. We're gonna have a nice WNBA season preview coming up on Thursday, and hopefully a special guest involved with that one. I'm not going to jinx it, but gonna talk a lot. We're gonna talk more about Brittney there and the impact that that's had on the league and stuff. But something came out today about her situation being classified as. Let me try to get that phrase up. That specific classification of her situation and how it's changed. Being classified as wrongfully detained in Russia, as opposed to previous classification, which would have left her more at odds. It left her more, in a tougher situation. Than which it leaves open the possibility of diplomatic interaction that can allow her to possibly speed up her her being taken out of Russia and let go essentially and all that. But that comes on this. It comes at the same time that the WNBA announced that they're going to have decals on all the floors of all their teams this year. BG and her number. Just showing that the unity that we often see with WNBA. That they're standing behind her and they want her to get home as soon as possible. So that's definitely a good thing to see there as far as that storyline goes. But let me read from an ESPN report. Government now considers WNBA star Brittney Griner to be wrongfully detained by the Russian government, signaling a significant shift in how officials will try to get her home. This is written by TJ Quinn of ESPN. And so like I said, it makes it more of a whole thing where it's it's not as simple. We would all wish for it to be simple. It's just like, look, she don't deserve to be there. Get her out. But with these diplomatic things that are involved, you have to release control in certain ways and let these people deal with it they want to. But I'm with, as much as with some of the other domestic issues that have been going on in the last day or so. I would advise, if you feel any sort of way about this, to just speak your voice, use your platform, and be as loud as you can. If you feel that that wrong is being done here, and I think that's pretty much how we all feel. Just like keep speaking to it and keep letting Brittney know that you're on, that she's on your mind, and that you want her to come back home as soon as possible and in one piece, safe and all that. So that's definitely what we're gonna continue to do on this platform, as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, I advise any of y'all the same way to to join in on that noise, because it's been a rough situation for her, and just really nothing that she deserved, and but like I said, the news today I think definitely makes a difference. And if you read on that report from ESPN as well as others, you will see why I can't explain it as well as others can. But like I say, it's positive. Positive details going forward there.
Yeah, no, she got a hearing on May 19th, and hopefully, I know they're saying that it's still, yet to be determined what's going to happen with that, or how much quicker things might move or might not move. But just the fact that her family now was telling people, I think you alluded to this a second ago, Kyle, letting the WNBA know, letting Brittney Griner's fans know, friends, supporters, just to use, like you just said, like be able to use their voice to speak out now, whereas before they were trying to keep everything, as quiet as they could to not.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a positive, obviously a positive development, but still, everybody's got their fingers crossed, and it's just crazy to me still that she's been over there since February, all over some vape cartridges. It's crazy, man.
And we and you were talking, Drew, about prior to us going live about how the season is caught up. It's sort of this WNBA season is shot up on us and everything, and they're starting this weekend, and this player who was in her prime and just such a meaningful part of women's basketball is not going to be there for the beginning of the season. Hopefully she'll be there for its end. We can think more in that way now, but just for her not to be there, like imagine if an NBA player of any sort, any sort really, but let alone a star of the magnitude of Brittney Griner was held essentially held hostage in a foreign nation, at the beginning of the NBA season. It would be I think a much bigger deal than what we've had with Griner.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's even a larger deal when you think about the fact that you're talking about Brittney Griner playing for the Phoenix Mercury, which is a organization in the WNBA, runner up in the W Finals. This past, returning a lot of talent on the team from Diana Taurasi, Skylar Diggins, so Sophie Graham, and so forth, trying to make a run back at it, and then Shields from the Sky this off season. Like, that's a huge loss for the sport. It's devastating news, and you just really hope that she's safe. And while it's great to see the WNBA players standing in unison with her, that was to be expected by me. They've always done a great job supporting their own, no matter what, through thick and thin. Like the Mercury organization, and the WNBA is a league, and her representatives, from lawyers and whatnot, are doing all that they can to get her home, because that's really the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. Another, on another end of the spectrum as far as women's basketball, definitely got to shout out Vivian Stringer, the immense coaching icon. Won national championships. Won a national championship with Rutgers. Of course, the famous Rutgers team that was harassed in a lot of ways through the media, but still held it down some time ago. But she actually took 3 programs to the Final Four, Iowa and Cheney State. And I wasn't even I have to plead ignorance on the earlier teams, like especially Cheney State. I didn't know that they were actually in that very first national championship game that women's basketball had 40 years ago. So it was, that was something I learned just really in recent weeks, that the anniversary of that came across, and it's really interesting just to go through that history and really think about what the impact that she's had on the sport of basketball as a whole, not just women's basketball. And she's really an icon that we should uphold and try to follow in her footsteps, and try to just make follow her example in regards to upholding women and Black women in sport. And you look at someone like Don Cheney, Don Staley today, you think about maybe she's probably soldiering on in that same fashion, and it's a lot easier for her to come out and do what she do because of a person like Vivian Stringer. So definitely want to shout her out and wish her the best in her retirement.
Yeah, she's been coaching longer than we've been alive, man. That's crazy, man. First Black coach, male or female, to 1,000 wins in, I believe, NCAA history. So shouts out to her, man. Hopefully she has a lovely retirement, is able to spend time with her family. I know she suggested as much in her statements regarding her retirement. So like you said, Kyle, just salute to a real one, man.
Definitely.
Blessed to say that I got a chance to watch a lot of her teams when I was and I remember when she was going for her 1,000th win, even though she didn't get it at DePaul, it was a lot of national hoopla around that, like my freshman year about 10 years ago. So I got a chance to her and then, watch Pat Summitt in her last games as well. Prior to her final year at Tennessee when they beat DePaul at All-State Arena. So, like, just getting a chance to see those legends of the game, and I thought about that when she retired. It's like, wow, she has been, coach for over 50 years and been in the game for that long. Able to, just say that you had a chance to watch her teams and learn and watch them up close. That's something I never forget. I know that much.
Yeah, I'm gonna look more to her connections to our area too, because you think about her, like you say, Gary, she coached at Rutgers for a long time with DePaul in the same conference, coaching, also coaching at Iowa. Of course, she had to have recruited in this area, being so close by. I know Sean Davis. Shout out to the homie Sean. He mentioned seeing her come to Morgan Park to recruit before. So he mentioned that on Twitter. So that's pretty. I'm sure she probably got some Chicago stories, or there's some people here in Chicago that got some stories about her.
Cappy Pondexter.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah. I got a love-hate thing with Cappy because she flaked on D&. Davis show a couple times. I tried to book her, but she's Chicago, so it's still all love, But anyway, okay. Moving on, just right quick. I guess another. Oh, you mentioned DePaul, and I want to bring this up right quick. Some interesting things going on with the transfer market, the transfer portal with DePaul. Apparently, Imani Bates is considering DePaul. I think it may be an uphill climb, but he mentioned DePaul as among his finalists. The big name recruit went to Memphis. Didn't really work out there in his freshman year, but he's transferring. A lot of people think he might have been a one and done guy if things had went different in Memphis. But he's gonna try to regroup and have a better sophomore year. And because he mentioned a few schools, I think Kentucky and Michigan, I believe, and a couple others, big name schools. Louisville, yeah.
It's Louisville, DePaul, Eastern Michigan. And it was a couple of other schools. It was kind of shocking to me that he didn't have Illinois in the top 6 with the run that they've been on. And I know that Illinois was heavily pursuing him.
We gonna mention what Illinois did get in a minute, but like you said, that
they got, but
Illinois been in the mix, and they were like a top 10 school.
They're gonna be in the mix for a lot of people because of who they got on their staff. And shout out to my homie Tim Anderson, who is the assistant under Brad Underwood, and I worked there with Tony Allen Camp about like 10 years ago. That's my man. So he worked at DePaul before he revived. So Imani being in that top 6, that's a big deal. I think they're gonna have a lot of work, but based on what Jeff Goodman been saying, it's down to 2 schools, Louisville and DePaul.
Really?
And that's what he's been saying. And I mean, Kenny Payne is not to be messed with. Just knowing how he get down with the recruiting tip, knowing how he went after Anthony Davis and many players out of Chicago when he was with Kentucky under Calipari, and his NBA the background. He's going to turn that program around with Nolan Smith, who he coached out of Duke. That's going to be an interesting process. But DePaul being in the mix for him, I can't say that it surprises me too much because DePaul has a history of getting Michigan guys for some odd reason. Wilson Chandler, Romeo teams, like the list goes on and on. It's always guys out of Michigan for some odd reason that have some attraction to DePaul.
Well, hopefully, with something like this, that'll mean that maybe they'll be in the mix for, because you mentioned those are two good examples there, but Bates was just like at another level as far as coming out of high school and the hype that was around him. So maybe in the future, DePaul may be in the mix with guys like that coming straight out of school, and the impact that could have potentially on the program. Like DePaul really is a diamond in the rough, man. When you think about everything that they got going for it, the stadium, the location, being in the Big East, there's no reason why top guys shouldn't at least be thinking about DePaul every year, like they think about other schools in the area, like Marquette and and Illinois, University of Illinois. I would hope that definitely, like you say, Gabe, that there is some impact here, whether or not Imani goes there or not, that it does have a positive impact on DePaul and that they get back on that speedway. Like, we've been waiting for so long for them to get going again, really, as a program. And, they've been teasing it, but, there's a chance they may have hit, really hit another level here with this Imani Bates stuff. But like I said, going back to U of I and Champaign, they pick up a big name in Shannon, the transfer from Texas Tech, and Gabe, I know you. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's an Illinois kid, originally from a city. I'm not. I don't remember how much he was really involved with Illinois coming out of school, but he chooses to go there at this point. And I've seen people list the potential lineup for U of I going into next year. Man, it looks pretty tough, man. Like, knowing those fans, they're gonna be really. I'm pretty much one myself too, but U of I got a lot to look forward to with this upcoming season.
Absolutely, help, but grow up from where we come from and pay attention to what's going, because they have always been like the leader among the college basketball program. And to get a 5-star like a Scott guard position, be able to poach him from Kentucky, and then be able to get Terrence Shannon, who was at one time, believe it or not, a DePaul commit until he started getting bigger offers. And then he went to Texas Tech out of Lincoln Park. That's a big time of day for them because he can shoot, can also provide them with a defensive on the wing, and you add those guys next to Ty Rogers, who on the high school scene out of Thornton, who can play either the 3 or 4 spot. And then you got Melendez. They got a lot of young talent over there. And like I said, even though Brad Underwood has been doing a hell of a job, that a lot of that is the byproduct of what Tim has put in the work to knowing a lot of guys off of mean streets, and Matt Wire having those AAU ground roots, working with guys like and Jabari Parker, and the list goes on. That's it, bread and butter. So they're only gonna go up, and they just showing that they're like, in a way, they kind of bring it back to the old school era, like it used to be when like Jimmy Collins got the city in the late. Then they're also going in a now direction, which they show with like Clark and even other guys like and Covington, who's now went to the NBA. So to be able to blend that with local guys and nationally and going to regions, cool to see.
That's how you compete for national titles. That's what you know, like in the wake of like I say the breakup with Jimmy Collins, and you know him not getting to be the heir apparent to Lou Henson, you know, and all that, you know, that's what they lost, and they got it back for a little bit with, you know, when they had you know, Bill Self there for the little bit he was there, and you know, Bruce Weber did a little bit different. You know, he relied on guys who Self sort of brought in as well, but he was able to mix it with a good bit of local talent, and it was just a unique bit of talent that drove that '05 team. But since then, you know, just really a lot of struggles for the program. But then you see the turnaround again more recently, and I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to get a lot of credit going down the line for what he meant to the program and what he showed as far as being a guy who was NBA possible and left the program NBA ready. And you know, people see that, other players see that, and they go like, okay, especially now in this era of transfer portals and stuff, they could look at that and be like, okay, well, you know, maybe I didn't choose them coming out of high school, but now I'm at a position where you know, I can make an impact on this program, and this program can make an impact on me, you know, and we could go ahead and make it happen. So it's potentially a very exciting time for U of I, and like I said, especially this coming year. Definitely looking forward to seeing how that all comes together down there. And can they finally make that run that we've been sort of looking for them to make within the last couple of years, you know. They, like I say, neither of the past couple of years have really ended the way that they wanted them to down there. But this year may be even a more special year than what they've had in recent times. All right, but yeah, taking it back to the NBA though, before like I said we get on this Bulls stuff. One more thing that jumped out to me today: the awarding of the Sixth Man of the Year, Tyler Hero, gets that for Miami Heat. And I looked at his numbers, man. Looked at the numbers overall for Miami, and Hero's actually technically leading that team. He technically led that team in scoring over the course of the regular season. Jimmy Butler actually averages a point more, but he, if in the whole scoring competition race, he didn't play enough games, I guess, to be considered for that. So officially, Hero coming off the bench with averaging 20 points a game actually sort of led the team. But like I said, Jimmy actually was the lead scorer. But it's when you have a bench player, a six man who averages that much, that's a big impact. And it's sort of the thing that's hard to ignore when you talk about that particular award. And I don't know, you guys got any thoughts on Hero and his impact for those Heat?
Absolutely. But first of all, he's one of, I think that I was tracking over the season, he's one of 5 or 6 third-year guards that's having that proverbial third-year leap that people always kind of keep an eye out for. He's at the forefront of that, finally garnering that Sixth Man of the Year award, which he was more than deserving of than anybody else that could potentially pitch a case for that award this season. And for me, with him, it's the really minute, small points of growth for him. Like he's grown from watching him, of course, in the bubble, his rookie season, then to last season being like a letdown of sorts. To watching him not only get his production back up, but to even leapfrog what he did when he came on the scene his rookie season, that dude is special. He has a certain level of unpredictability about his game that allows him to flourish in a role like a sixth man, because he comes in and he usually only shares the floor with one, maybe two other starters. allowing him to have a lot more usage than he typically would. Then he shows that he has in their closing lineups even more so. Of course, when Jimmy's on the floor, when Bam's on the floor, when Lowry's healthy, when he's on the floor, So they put him in positions for him to be as absolutely successful as he can be, and for his level of unpredictability to be kind of relished and kind of bottled up, and presented the right way for that team to operate at a high frequency. And he's grown as not only as a scorer, but even more specifically with his pull-up dribbles from the mid-range, his pull-up dribble from the outside from three. He's grown as a playmaker and his processing speed with his decision making, and he's a very, very, very deceptive cutter. He does a lot of they call it throw and get, where he throws it to one of the many playmakers that the Heat have, and he'll chase his pass down, putting his defender in the trail, and it's almost like an extension of a pick and roll because he gets it back from whoever he threw it to, and then he gets downhill, and that's putting whoever was guarding the man who he threw it to in a position of where he has to choose, and that's where he's able to just wreak havoc with his unpredictable handle, his quick pull up, his step back, and his, like I said, his processing speed and making decisions with the ball to put other people in good positions. So in general, and he's also grown as a defender. He can never be. He only has such a high ceiling as a defender, being, like barely 6'2" and like 175 soaking wet. Like he can only do so much defensively, but just the fact that he's competing so much on that end, in combination with all of the other different entities on the offensive end where he's showing so much growth, he's the main reason why the Miami Heat's floor from last season to this season has grown a lot more. And honestly, another thing that people don't really notice about him, with him, as Kyle alluded to, him leading the team in scoring, technically, he's also their closer. Now, you can say that might not necessarily be a good thing or whatever, but he's their legitimate closer because, as I mentioned, they don't have that many threats as far as scoring or as far as shooting off the dribble. So he's that one guy where when he has the ball in his hands, teams know they can't sag off him, and that unpredictability in the fourth quarter especially is what helps make that team go. And he led them in fourth quarter scoring this season. I think Bam was second, if I'm not mistaken, but Tyler was for sure their fourth quarter leading scorer, and a large part of that is due to his growth and the position that they put him in and allow him to, show what he has.
Hey, good breakdown there, Steven, man. It's really, really a lot to take in when you think about the improvements that a player like that can make. And like Steven said, that third-year jump really is important. Maybe he should have been in the running for most improved too. They had, it's expanding on the definition of most improved, but yeah, just Miami, just really, when you look at that team this year, just a lot of depth. I'm like I said, I went over their numbers, and they got, with Jimmy and Tyler being two guys averaging over 20. You had Bam, who was pretty much averaging 20, and you had about several other guys who could give you between 10 and 15 easy, averaging 10 and 15 on the year. Lowry, Oladipo, with a short amount of games. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, and then you had Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent can give you buckets too, as well as a lot of off the bench, and PJ Tucker, what he give you, like Marquise Morris. Like, this is really, I gotta admit, man, I've slept a little bit on Miami. Maybe it's sort of a response to all the Heat culture that seem to come up all the time with them. But I guess that's real. But what really is real is that they are a very well built team. They very multifaceted, and they're not a team that has like a crazy volume score. But as you say, you look at the numbers, they put up points, and they defend, and they shoot well from range, and it's just really hard to contain them in all of their flexibility that they offer from both the starters and the bench.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing if we get a rematch of Bucks and Heat. I picked the Celtics to beat the Bucks, but I wouldn't mind getting that rematch just to see what would that be, like round 3 from the bubble to last year when the Bucks just dismantled the Heat. And my boy Jimmy Butler, man, made him look terrible. So I just want to see how
that'd be the best of 3 too. So
I would like to see that. I wouldn't be mad at that matchup if Milwaukee was able to get past the Celtics.
Oh yeah.
And it's sort of transitioning to our last subject of the day, well, next to last, right, technically, but looking at the Bulls and sizing them up, like, the Heat like really swooped the Bulls throughout the entire season. Like, even when the Bulls were playing well, they whooped the Bulls. Like, and it's interesting to me. Like, when you look at where the Bulls are compared to other teams that finish ahead of them, what are we looking at in regards to, what they need to build that, there's certain obvious things like defensive post and presence and, consistent long range shooting, definitely is an issue, but in y'all mind, like, how do you size up the team coming out of the Milwaukee series and, how disappointing the pretty much the entire final third of the season was, what's on your minds in regards to the Bulls?
Well, I mean, in terms of the series with Milwaukee, I think just we saw it in the last 3 games, just how they defended DeRozan, how they defended Levine, and just basically said, we're going to make everybody else beat us. And if you do, hats off to you. And they couldn't do it, even though for the most part, the others, that Shaq calls them, they were getting wide open or open 3-point looks. They just couldn't knock them down, which, especially in Kobe White's case, is really disappointing because his role was more clearly defined than it has been in his previous 2 seasons. Like, this is your job, and be kind of that microwave scorer. Now, granted, things weren't perfect. He's coming off a shoulder injury. I think he was one of a bunch of players that had to go out for COVID. He was forced into different roles at different times because of other players getting injured and going into COVID protocols. But that was something, that was a role for him, or that was a spot for him where he could have played so much more of an X factor for the Bulls. Maybe not in terms of being able to knock off the Bucks, but at least making those games a lot more competitive and keeping the Bucks from being able to sell out on Levine and DeRozan so hard. You mentioned that, it's obvious that the Bulls need shooters. They need some size. They need some defenders to kind of back up Caruso and Ball, and also make life a little more easier on Vucevic, or at least put him in better positions to succeed defensively. But they, the front office, they did a pretty good job in constructing a roster for this season. But for the Bulls to take another step forward, they got to make some more tricks out of the bag, especially if they pay Levine max, which by all accounts, it seems like they're definitely going to extend that offer to him. And I can't see him turning down that deal when he stands to make $52 million more here than he would elsewhere, especially with the condition of his knee. And the Bulls can give him that extra year. You definitely, I would think, want to lock that up, just in terms of your own financial security. But they still got a ways to go in terms of being able to compete with the top 4 teams in the league as they are right now. I think they went 1-14 against those teams. The only win coming against Boston way earlier in the season when Boston was still trying to figure things out. Matter of fact, that was the game where the Bulls made a huge run. Kyle, I think we got on here after that game, and I was like,
yes.
Man, I think that was the drunkest I had been off Bulls Kool-Aid the whole season. I was like, man, I was feeling it. I was buzzed for sure.
That was one of those moments where it's like, oh, this team can't be beat.
Right. Are we going to the championship? But Marcus Smart really drilled into that team. And I don't know if there was a change right after that game, but it kind of got the –
Yeah, it was around that time where he sort of shouted them out, and he kind of laid into the leadership of the team. And so that's well, let's just see about that up, Drew, because it might have been a turning point for both of those teams, really.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, we obviously wish we could have seen this team at full strength. Weren't able to do that. Even if they had this team or had all their members, all their key parts, it still would have been tough to see them beat one of these teams 4 times. But
Yeah.
man, for a while there, it was looking real good, man. It really was. Levine was putting up all NBA caliber numbers before he got injured. The Bulls were top 10, and I believe, in defense with the way that Caruso and Lonzo Ball were creating havoc on the perimeter and keeping Vucevic, like I said, in his role defensively and not having to have him play outside his body. When he's got capable defenders in front of him. So I don't know, man. They still got some work to do, man, and they need a lot more luck on their side in terms of avoiding the injury bug next season.
Definitely. Like, sometimes you make your own luck, and sometimes luck falls upon you in certain ways. But yeah, definitely, just when you go from, like I say, the certain issues with COVID, even though they got through a lot of that pretty well, but the stuff that happens with Caruso with the injury in Milwaukee, and he who shall not be named, and the leg, the knee stuff with Zach, and it's just a lot of bad bumps, but what they did to start off the season, the energy that they provided for the city and for Bulls Nation, as it were, really was vital. And so many people at the end, we were able to come together and really come to grips with things, because we knew how things were going to end. By the time you got to the end of the Milwaukee series, but everybody, I saw so many people online say that, as bad as things ended, this was as much fun they had watching the Bulls in years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Like, people, that was a pretty recurrent statement from Bulls fans, and that's meaningful. It makes me think of something that Ken Davis would say during darker times for the team, like, just entertain me. Don't if you can do anything, just entertain me. We don't have to. We grew up off of Mike and the championships and stuff. We know what the highest level of basketball is and how hard it is to get to there. But in the meantime, just entertain me. And that's something that the Bulls did this year, and that can't be understated. But there's more work to do.
We spoiled brats around here. We came up during the last dance during the 6 championships, the 2-3 people. We spoiled brats, man. We won it. Like, y'all gotta think, man. We earned that right, I think, as fans. I say that half tongue in cheek, but yeah.
But like I say, I remember tweeting. There was another anniversary about the Jordan game where he scored like 50 on the Wizards in the first round in the 97.
97.
Yeah, and that who gonna check me game. Rod Strickland tried to say that didn't happen, but Chris Webber say, it happened. Chris Webber say on the stone, it happened, But
my father was a season ticket holder during the second 3-peat run from 96 to 98. We used to sit in the club level, and those were some of my most earliest memories of basketball. But when I look back at the Bulls season, it was the most exciting I've had, the time I've had watching them, I would say, since the 14-15 campaign, when Paul was here his first year. I went to more games this year, just being more interested in the team and following those guys than I have at any point in the last 7. And I'm always getting offers to go to games and whatnot. Shout out to my guy Bob Rosenberg, who's been covering those games for many years since the inception of the franchise. But at the same time, I hope for the next generation of fans coming up that they could get a chance to experience and grow, a championship laden team and grow with this team, because everybody doesn't have those experiences. If we get to, and I know for myself, even though I'm in my late 20s, like in The Last Dance really captured that for me. There are a lot of kids out here in the city who only know Michael for his shoes and not his game. And they only know the Derrick Rose era. And that was a short-lived era, as great as it was and as fun as it was to watch. Now I'm more interested to see what does this team do in the front office from AK and Mark to build a perennial playoff team in the Eastern Conference that eventually ascends to championship caliber. Because like I said earlier, a couple weeks ago, this is Chicago. And no matter what age you fall in, whether you've seen championship teams like we have or not, we love winners in the city, no matter where you stand. So it was a great first trial run. And it was incredible to watch. But going forward, I want to see Lonzo working with that medical staff to get healthy. We talk about a guy that's only played like at most like 62 games in a season, has never crossed that threshold, has had multiple torn meniscus injuries, dealt with knee issues. He's got to improve the lower half of his body. Patrick Williams, I appreciate what DeMar was saying in the exit interview, saying that he intends to get him out to Los Angeles to work with him. I think that's big. Patrick Williams did exactly what I expected him to do in the playoffs, and he grew and ascended. And I think that's only going to make him more hungrier. I think a lot of Bulls fans that I've talked to have been very impatient with him, but I think over the next summer, you're going to see him improve Patrick Williams. And when you do, he's going to make you miss a lot of your words. So I don't know how great he'll be, in regards to all-star status or whatever, but any pressure that he can help take off of an aging, I'm not going to say aging DeMar, but a DeMar that will soon be turning 33 years old or 34, that's going to be very helpful. They're going to need him.
If he could be that consistent starting four for next year's team, I think that would be enough for me. If you could plug him in for 65, 70 games at least and know that he's going to contribute as a two-way player and do some of the things that he did, like in the Minnesota game to end the regular season and the last couple of games in the Milwaukee series. That's what you want, at least by next year. That's meaningful, But Rome wasn't built in a day, and championship teams aren't built in a year, And Steven, I hand it off to you. I put up a link to your last post on Substack for us. You went over your main points of what you want to see, what you think needs to be done in the off season. If you want to go off for that or whatever, let us know what you think about the path forward for the Bulls coming out of this season.
Yeah, so I feel like general discourse around the Chicago Bulls from the point where they traded or they attained Lonzo Ball and then signed DeMar DeRozan and added Alex Caruso. I feel like the general discourse around the Bulls has always been inaccurate, and that's from pundits across the league and fans of the team itself. Because coming into the season, they were expected to be like a fringe play-in team, which looking at their roster on paper compared to teams that had surprising runs last season or the season before last in 2020, 2021, and comparing what the Bulls had talent for talent and on paper, I was just kind of scratching my head like, how do you guys not see this team not just making a play-in, like legitimately being a play-in team, but even ascending out of that round and making the actual playoffs without needing a play-in? Like, I never felt like that was out of the realm of possibility, and they pretty much told people that through their play early in the season right off the bat. And then as the season kind of progressed on, they had the ups and downs with both COVID and injuries, unfortunately. And a lot of times it was both injuries and COVID in tandem with each other with multiple players on the team. So unfortunately, we never really saw like that best version of them after that first third of the season. And I feel like a lot of people who don't watch games consistently enough across the league were looking at the Bulls' first third of the season, and they were looking at the second third and then the latter third, and they were looking like, oh, this team these are a bunch of frauds. They're inconsistent. XYZ and ABC, and the whole time they're just kind of exposing themselves, but for the ignorance that they had and not watching the team and keeping tabs on what was really going on. So kind of bringing all of that in context, the fact that this team finished where they finished in the regular season, and again leapfrogged the play-in tournament, and even won a game when, again, just like people did in the beginning of the season, they counted them out right away and said it was probably going to be the quickest first-round series, that they would get swept and they would get blown out in every game, which was not true. You know, the first game was very tight. They should have won the first game. They came back and rebounded, made adjustments in the second game, and they went and got that one. Though it was a little bit closer in the end, they pretty much had it in a somewhat comfortable length of winning for the majority of that game. And then, of course, what happened at home, and then Game 5 happened. But just the fact that they had the showing that they had, even with the miss, all of the different injuries they had, players being out, and this being their first full season in this iteration of the team.
Yeah.
Putting all of that together, this is a hell of a season. And then again, the Bulls hadn't made the playoffs in what was it, 4 or 5 seasons?
5 years.
So it was 5 years. So what is there? What are we judging this team off of? A team that didn't make the playoffs for 5 years, didn't really even sniff the playoffs in 5 years, just leapfrogged the play-in tournament, and was legitimately one of the best teams in the league without being.
Jim Boylan was coaching this team a couple years ago, man. It's a miracle they've done anything in this amount of time.
Come on, man. Come on, man. So with that being said, yes, they do. Yes, they had a good season. It's definitely an excellent starting point to have at their foundation. So now it's all about building off of that. Can't be comfortable being what they are now, because that's not going to get them what all the money that's being put into this team and all of the different moves that have been made. That's not what that's all suggesting that they want to do. So the next steps are going to be, in my opinion, there's 3 big things, and Drew mentioned one of the big things being luck and health. That's obviously something that's always a variable in play, regardless of what season or what point in the season it is. But they need a better slate of health dealt for them moving forward, because if they can get even 75% of that back, this season would, in my opinion, be a lot different, because they wouldn't end up playing the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. They would have given themselves a more favorable matchup and probably would have given themselves home court advantage in the first round on top of that. So I feel like the health aspect of it is one big thing. The next thing is for Billy Donovan, in my opinion. He has to come up with a scheme for this team to have more of an identity on offense, and that's going to start with player movement and ball movement. Once we got to that third third of the season going into the playoffs, the Bulls' offense grew stale often, and they had spells where they went scoring drops for 4 and 5 minutes. With all of the pyrotechnic type scores that they have on this roster, for that team to go stale in scoring, regardless of who's in and out the lineup, is inexcusable. They need to have a lot more player movement and ball movement, and players that are viable that can keep opposing defense's attention off the ball specifically, and shooting talent. They surround their top end talents with shooters, and I think they were top 7 in the offensive efficiency at the end of the season. Again, with all the injuries they had, still top 7. That says a lot, especially for this roster being what it was in most of those games. Pretty much end up the 3-point shooting outside of 2 or 3 players, especially with Alonzo Ball being out. That says a whole lot. And then you add to that the fact that, again, this is their first go around with each other. They have a hell of a foundation to build off of moving forward. And if they can just make those adjustments as far as getting health for one, but making the internal adjustments and scheme for their offense specifically, and then getting those type of players that they need on the fringes around their top end talent. If they can culminate those things, and that's not a lot to do compared to what other teams in the East need to do to get to the level that the Bulls are at. So if they can do that at the bare minimum and get the internal development that they need from Dosunmu and Williams over the summer, I feel like we'll be sitting in the same situation as we did this season, being at or near the top of the Eastern Conference, giving ourselves a punching chance at the second round and beyond.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Billy Donovan, because I feel like he stands to, make some improvements in what he brings to the table as well, man. Whether it be in-game adjustments, lineup configurations, but giving Pat Williams more on-ball roles, using him in pick and rolls. When you have him on the floor with, like you said, I think you call them pyrotechnic type shooters or scorers in DeRozan and LaVine, like there's no reason why LaVine can't be used more off ball, some sort of weak side action when you got something going on with maybe DeRozan and Vooch, or DeRozan and Patrick Williams. They made a big deal about Patrick Williams having these point guard skills when he got drafted. Use them. I saw it a little bit toward the end of the season. I saw him running pick and rolls. I saw him bringing the ball to the court a few times. Like, I want to see more of that, because I think there's more juice that can be squeezed out of this team that can potentially unlock another level that they can get to, man. So, as much talk as you see on Bulls Twitter about, Vucevic needs to do this, or we need to go get Gobert, or we shouldn't pay Zach this, or DeRozan's not going to be able to duplicate this season. Like, Billy Donovan needs to go back to the drawing board himself. And I'm a fan of Billy Donovan. I like what he's able to do. I like how the culture has kind of shifted since he's been here. I like the trust and the faith that he puts into his team. I also like how he keeps it real. Like, he doesn't pull any punches with the media. So I can only imagine what he says to them behind closed doors. But there's some things that he can improve on as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, Drew. I'm so glad you brought that up, especially with LaVine being used more off the ball, because when he was playing on Team USA this summer, he showed that he can play off the ball. And I was kind of disappointed that Billy didn't seek to get him more involved in off the ball scenarios and concepts and so forth. And what you talk about with Billy, I agree with. He's brought a level of stability to the Bulls franchise. He's actually brought them a real coach in the building. And yeah, he does keep it real. And that's something that Kobe was talking about on the exit interviews following the loss to Milwaukee last Thursday at the Advocate Center. But at the same time, you that's always been something that Billy has struggled with, is making adjustments. And that dates back to his time in Oklahoma City. There's a lot of people I knew out there that would talk about that, Paul George and Russell Westbrook, as well as Carmelo during the long year. He was out there like that. That's what has always been a question mark with him. And he's going to get a lot of leeway this year because of the injuries, because of the way that the season ended and because of the great job that he did in managing to weather the storm. But next year, the pressure's on. And I think, they definitely got to get a big man. But I've been listening to a lot of talk about Gobert too. But I feel like you can get somebody that's much younger than Rudy Gobert that can offer the services of a Rudy Gobert at a cheaper rate. I truly believe that, especially when now contracts are going to start going up. They're going to start going more into, the payroll, if you will, especially when you're considering the fact that they're going to be bringing in Zach on a max contract, which they really have no choice but to do at this point, especially when it comes to who they're negotiating with, and that's Rich Paul.
Yeah, and not to to say nothing of the fact that if they don't offer him a max, they kind of unravel all the goodwill they seem to have done across the league with players looking at Chicago as a destination now. You can't play it cheap now. You can't.
Yep. And it was a time when they didn't have no clutch sports class on the roster. Now you got 3, and to me that's a big deal. Because anytime you have those type of guys on your roster, those guys typically impact winning around the league. And you need to have front office and ownership and personnel having meetings with these type of guys in negotiations and being in the room, because that's going to only allow you to be in the room for other stars in the years to come, whether you with Rich or not.
Yeah. One random thing, y'all, just real quick, still on top of the Bulls, just kind of random. I feel like Vucevic is such a polarizing figure. Kobe White is in that category too a little bit, but when you're having a conversation with somebody, the way they talk about Vucevic kind of lets you know how they see the game.
Talk about
like anybody that says Vucevic is trash and they got to get rid of him, like, okay, you want a rim protector, but can that rim protector also be the hub of your offense? Can he rebound? You know what I'm saying? Like, can he make these quick decisions with the ball in his hand when he has like a 4-on-3 advantage off of a pick and roll that he just got the ball from? Like, it's a lot that goes into it, and I feel like Vooch he's a scapegoat. Like, I guess every team, every situation, every fan base has a scapegoat, and he is that, and really has been that this whole year. Even when he did kind of step up his game, especially in the playoffs. Like those first couple games in Milwaukee, man, he was like the steadiest player. But yeah, I just wanted to speak my piece on Vooch, man, because he gets logged a lot, man.
I'm glad you said that, Drew. I remember a conversation I had with a person. I ain't gonna say who they are because they've actually appeared on this show, but they were like, just get rid of the whole front court. Like they just get rid of all. I'm like, man, you tripping, man. Vucevic ain't going nowhere. Really, what we could look at for next year is pretty much that the whole front, the whole star lineup is going to come back, which is a good thing. It means stability. It means that you can rely on those guys. And like if you're talking about Patrick filling in at the 4 and being that guy, you pretty much got your star lineup coming back. There stands to be some shaking up in the bench and all, but that's what I wanted to in this part of the conversation with was, if there's one person, they could be in the league already, they could be an incoming college player because the Bulls will have the 18th pick in the first round in the upcoming draft. That's been established. So, if there's one player who you would put on the Bulls to enhance what they got going on, who wasn't on the team, of course, this past year, can you think of one right in this moment?
Mark Williams.
From Duke.
Mark Williams is the big man that Lonzo Ball needs to play in the pick and roll with. Mark Williams is the big man who you need to serve as your rim protection. And he's also your big man who is not afraid to do what Vooch can't do, really, and that's come out and defend a guard on a pick and roll switch if need be, as well as go back into drop coverage and protect the rim. He would be huge here. And I think he's a guy, even if he didn't start, you bring him off the bench for like 15 minutes a night, he's a big difference maker. He's a guy that will play right away. He kind of reminds me a lot of Clint Capella, with a higher ceiling in the sense that he's younger and he has more room to grow. He's gonna rebound as well, and that's something that the Bulls struggled with. Another guy that I would look at that's active in the league, if I was the Bulls, I would look at considering TJ Warren as a 6-man and seeing whether or not he would be interested in having or either want to sign a 1+1 deal or a 1-year deal on a prove it type of deal, because they got to add some more scoring on their bench. And it's going to be some nights when DeMar may not have it. And, and if you're going to sit up here and think about potentially flipping a Kobe White, you're going to have to find a way to replace that production from someplace. And why not get it with a guy that's a professional bucket getter who could get it in the mid-range as well as, on a perimeter. And even though he has a lot of question marks with his defense, you can kind of hide him a little bit with the athletes you have here and Caruso and Ball if he stays healthy. And he's not really that bad is what people make him out to be, I don't think. So, and he showed, some growth on that end. That would be a guy that I would look at. Chris Boucher is another one from the Raptors. They got to get some athletic wings and athletic bigs that are willing to run the floor and do the dirty work. And maybe you don't have Vucevic in the spotlight as much with pick and rolls getting headhunted by guards left and right.
All right, I like those options. Steven, you got anybody?
Yeah, so kind of mine is I'm on the fence about the Bulls adding any more young talent because they already have enough young talent that'll be in there that they're expecting to have in their playoff rotation as is, in Dosunmu and Williams. So I feel like looking across the league, even if you look at the Warriors, and they're like of all the young talents that they've added, the only youthful talents that are actually in their playoff rotation are Poole and what's the other guy's name? I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
Kaminga.
Yeah, Kaminga. Yeah. It's Poole and Kaminga that are really the only two young pieces that are in their in their playoff rotation. Outside of course, like the Memphis Grizzlies, that's a different scenario. But looking at the rest of the league, like the teams that are contending right now, they don't really have that many young pieces because then there's a learning curve that comes with that, and with that learning curve is a subsequent there's a like a hurdle that you have to get over, and you don't want to have that with a team that's already has like continuity that they're trying to build. You're trying to mesh in more young talent. So I
Well,
definitely
one
like
thing
that.
I say about that right quick, Steven, is that
Mhm.
if you look at the scouting, and we got better scouting now than we had in quite a while, and you look at the way that they were able to hit with Io this year. A lot of people, didn't think much of Io coming out of school. He winds up playing really a whole rookie year without really hitting the rookie wall.
Yeah,
So I mean, it'd be hard to come up with another guy like that a second year in a row.
for sure.
But if the possibilities are there. You can pluck a guy maybe who's overlooked, who may be a little bit more mature than the average college player. Maybe they could fit in the rotation a similar way.
Mm-hmm. And kind of going off of that, looking more so, hopefully for more rim protection, a big man that's a contrast to what Vucevic does, not a replacement, somebody that can work in place of, not to phase Vucevic out of it, is a player. If it's not him exactly, somebody in that player type that I feel like fits them appropriately, bringing rim protection, bringing versatility, and being able to guard the pick and roll, and bringing vertical spacing as the alley-oop threat. And that would be Rashaan Holmes. He's been out there in Sacramento right now. I was very surprised that he made it past the trade deadline and didn't get moved, considering what they did with Sabonis and the other roster moves that they had going on, and now the inevitable coaching situation that they have going on right now as well. I pretty much penciled him in as one of my 5 favorite pieces to look at to be moved at the trade deadline. I would love for the Bulls to see what they can do as far as making an offer to get to the table and try to attain a player of his ilk to bring in and to play even with Vucevic, because one of the good things that came from the playoffs was the Bulls being able to stash Vucevic in the corners where he's an elite corner 3-point shooter, and using other players like say Patrick Williams to screen. Like if you add Rashaan Holmes to this roster, they can share the floor in that sense for minutes at a time and let Vucevic function as a spot up shooter, which is one of his strengths, and still have that rim protection and that vertical spacing on offense to screen and play elite ball in that realm as well. And then other like ancillary players that I feel like will fit the Bulls, I feel like Kobe White is not gonna necessarily make it back to the roster for next season, but he is the type of player that they need off the bench. And kind of in that role as a spot up shooter, movement shooter, or off screen shooter, I'm looking at 2 of my Michigan State guys. I'm looking at my guy Gary Harris, who's gonna be a free agent. He's 6'5", that's the height for
Gary
the
should have
class.
been on the team for several years now.
He has been though. He definitely has been. But I feel like this would be the most apt time for them to add him because he brings that
I like
combo
that.
guard
I like
element.
that.
He has experience. He plays defense. He has a consistent brand of energy coming from Michigan State playing under Tom Izzo, to where he's gonna be no nonsense. And when he comes to the game, he's gonna bring a certain level of respect, and there's gonna be a level of accountability that's not dissimilar to what the Caruso and Ball bring when they're on the floor, and elevating the level of play of the other players on the floor with them on the defensive end. And then another Michigan State Spartan that I feel like fits the Bulls' needs, especially off the bench and in shooting, is Brent Forbes. Brent Forbes has bounced around a little bit at this point, but in each stop with the San Antonio Spurs and then with the Denver Nuggets this past season, he's been one of their more viable players. He's not necessarily thought of as a defensive player, but he's passable on that end, and he's smart, and he knows when to help and not to overhelp, which is one of the biggest things that you need from your role players defensively in the playoffs, is being able to trust the scheme, trust the system, and be accountable for not making mistakes. You don't necessarily have to be a lockdown defender or an impact player, but if you can just not make mistakes and be one of the top 8 or 9 players in the playoff rotation, that raises the floor of your team as a whole. Not to mention he's a borderline elite 3-point shooter in many different phases, above the break, in the corners, again, spot up shooting, off the dribble, he can do some things. And then again, off screens, which is that's like my pet peeve with the Bulls from this past season, was the fact that they didn't use Kobe in a role that he could definitely have at least been impactful and movement because he's so quick.
Yeah.
He can shoot off the dribble. He has a quick trigger too. Just setting off ball screens on the second side of any primary action that they might have going on with Levine and DeRozan and Vucevic and Williams. Having that guy moving around is going to keep the attention of any help defense, and that's just going to give the overall Florida offense a lot more apt for playoff basketball when you have teams in the half court with set defenses.
That's the other thing too. Vucevic is like far and away the team's best screener. He can't screen for 3 people at once. You know what I'm saying? What I love about this is that you guys said maybe one other name that I had written down. So that's awesome. That's awesome. I like all the names you guys brought up. I'm not sure if these guys would be in the Bulls' price range or even on their minds, especially this first guy I'm gonna mention. But I would love to see the Bulls try to make a run for JaVale McGee. I don't know if he would want to come to the Bulls after playing in the finals and potentially being able to get back there this year. Robert Covington, a guy that was mentioned during the
hometown
trade deadline. Yeah, and he played much better than what he showed like the first half of the season he was with the Blazers. Like he looked much better. Bruce Brown, a guy that brings a little attitude, some defense. He's shown he can knock down some 3-point shots in the playoffs. So I think outside of shooting and size and defense, this team needs some toughness. It needs some in-your-face type of guys. Nicholas Batum, another guy that can play small ball, 5, can provide a little defense, some shooting. Is another guy that I would like to see maybe on the lower scale, maybe a Taurean Prince. Again, just a long guy, athlete. He can knock down the 3. He's not, I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily a volume shooter. I think he took maybe three a night at 35 or 36% clip. But it's hard, man, because they need like every team needs this, but they need like guys that can do more than one thing, man. So they can't be exposed on one side of the ball or the other. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like I said, the guys that you brought up, Gabe, and that you brought up, Steven, that's awesome because it makes me feel better about the odds or the chances of what they might be able to bring in, or at least what they might be looking at. Because I was looking at like 5 guys, like, okay, this might be it. But I think we all added it all up. We might have got like closer to 10. So,
yep.
Yeah. I mean, people I think are looking at this overall, free agency class and maybe not too impressed. But the Bulls aren't going to be playing in that high bracket anyway. That high cash bracket, anyways, except when you're talking about the whole deal with Zach and bringing them back. But as far as bringing talent into the franchise, yeah, you can. There's there's options there for them to do things at a pretty efficient rate and not necessarily have to break the bank.
Yeah, and I feel like the top 7 is pretty set, whether or not the Sumo as your 7th or 8th guy, wherever you might have him. Even if they don't end up using Javonte Green in some sort of trade scenario, he's still a good guy to have on your bench.
Yep.
I love if they brought him back.
Me too. The one criticism I think the front office can have is that they gave a 2-year deal to Simonovic and not to the Sumo. Oh, I'm sorry, they gave him a 3-year deal. I think they gave
a 3-year deal to Simonovic in 2 years.
Yep.
I've heard some people talk about that. I think that primarily has to do with the fact that you were getting him out of his European deal.
Okay.
And and Io being a second rounder probably wanted some more flexibility in coming out, and not be held down so much by his deal. Now, after next year, he'll be able to go and really get some money as opposed to being held down for a 3rd year.
Yeah, when you're a 2nd round draft pick, your contract is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like your roster spot's not. I'm sorry, your roster spot's not. You 1st round pick, your roster.
Yeah, right. Yeah, roster spot. Yeah, money ain't that a fail.
You get salary on the scale. So, like with Io, yeah, that was smart. Whoever his reps were to put in a 2-year deal, and I think he probably did a good job of looking at the Draymond Green scenario because they're gonna have to cash him out. And that's going to be a real interesting situation next year if he really plays well and builds off of what he did his rookie season. That's going to be a real interesting situation to see how the Bulls management front office team handle that. But JaVale McGee, yeah, you could get a guy like JaVale McGee on a 1-year deal. It's just a matter of whether he wants to be here or not. Depending on, the success with Phoenix or whatnot. That's a guy that's bounced around a lot of teams lately and signed 1-year deals over the last several years and been an impact player wherever he's been, whether it's Golden State, LA, and won championships. So, yeah, JaVale. And then they went after JaVale last year, during the Olympic run. They tried to get him, but, Phoenix came in with the offer. But
the Bulls look a lot better.
Yeah.
Gonna look a lot better this offseason than last offseason.
For sure, because they got to the playoffs, and you got a star in Zach LaVine on the rise. You have DeMar DeRozan, who's brought a veteran presence to the roster and to the locker room, who's a perennial all-star. You got Vucevic, who's a solid third option. In my opinion, if they didn't have as many injuries as they had, I thought they could have been a top 4 seed. I really do. They over exceeded my expectations in a sense, kind of, but I always felt like 4 through 6 was the range for them as a group, and they got there. And losing in round 1, that I kind of expected that, like, round 2 would have been an icing on the cake, thing, or overachieving. But this year was a great year, and now it's about bringing in veteran pieces. A guy like Terrence Ross would be a nice insertion for this group. A guy who hasn't been on a contender in years. And just like Rashaan Holmes, you're always looking at the trade deadline, like, when is he going to get flipped? And he never does for some odd reason. But, yeah, all he does is shoot like over 35% from 3, and it's still a solid wing defender.
It's not going to be at the top of the list, but I also wouldn't mind seeing them bring in some sort of veteran point guard, man, just for Lonzo insurance, because, like you said, can't really bank on him not necessarily finishing the season, but bank on him playing all 82 games plus the playoffs. So I think that's a piece that they could look at too after they, look at some of these other spots they need to fill.
Yeah, probably not the highest priority.
Yeah.
Lonzo's such a big X factor. Like, if I was in the front office, even though you want Lonzo insurance, you got to have a great medical staff intact with him and, like, get him on a plan, because this has been an issue at all of his stops, and it's cost him money. Because in my opinion, Lonzo Ball is a max player in the league when he's healthy. He's truly a max player. The Bulls got him on a team-friendly deal. And I think if he stays healthy, Lonzo Ball is the type of guy who can not only lead the league in assists, but he could be a perennial all-star, because he can be to the Bulls what Jason Kidd was throughout majority of his career, especially when he had a jump shot. And that's a floor general, a guy that's unselfish. And he has a jump shot at an earlier age than Kidd did in his career. And he's longer, and he can defend multiple positions. I think he's a huge presence here. And they're going to need him to play at least 65 plus.
Yeah, I mean, between him and Caruso, some people were talking about, the Bulls having 2 all defensive team type guards on the team, man. So
when they were both going early on, that made a lot of difference in, to have matchups, to have lineups with both of them on the court, or just to stagger one of them at least at different times. Like, it makes a difference in the way that team is approached by other offenses, because they can handle so much on that perimeter. Yeah. Well, yeah, fellas, man, we could go on all night about what the Bulls need and the anticipation for the off season to come. But we gonna wrap it up here. But I wanted to throw one more thing out, because I did mention it on the rundown, the whole anniversary of D Rose becoming the youngest recipient of the MVP award back in 2011. I think I said 10 years before, but really 11-year anniversary today. But I think we all have various memories that we can, that we can really that really live with us still vividly from that time and that era, just watching him and watching those Bulls teams and how they progressed and made themselves for a short time, but really a team that was to be reckoned with in the East. Of course, that 2011 team goes to the Eastern Finals. sort of a similar result to what happened this year, but at least it was 2 rounds later, getting gentlemen swept by the Miami Heat that year. But I just if before we wrap up, if you guys had any thoughts, any particular moments that stood out, any memories of that time and that period of D Rose that has lived with you since then.
I just want to say real quick, you really had to be there, man, because his MVP season has not aged well. If you follow NBA Twitter, like it gets dragged. People talk about who should have won, who should have been holding that trophy at the end of the year more than he should have, and comparing him to other MVPs.
But the LeBron sycophants,
man, it's crazy, man. But I just remember him. I think I can speak for all Bulls fans, just being the show-stopping athlete that he was pegged to be, coming out of Simeon, going into Memphis. Just you felt like you always had a chance, man. Even going against those Heat teams. And I tell anybody who is willing to have a conversation with me about that Bulls team going up against those Heat squads, I wish that Thibodeau would have used Joakim Noah the way he used them after Rose got hurt. Like I think that would have made a big difference, man, trying to run more of the offense through Joe so that Derrick Rose couldn't be trapped so easily, and kind of having his size used against them, especially against those Heatles squads. But he hasn't aged well as that MVP season, man. Again,
he still has the record, and that's one thing I think we could talk about right quick. Like him being 22 years old and winning that award. You have many kids who come into the league at 19 and 19, 20. You could look at a player like Jason Tatum, and he seemed like he's played forever because of how young he was when he started, and he's been in the playoffs every year. But to have a guy win the MVP award, the highest award individually you can win in the league at that age, like, do you think we can never see somebody in the near future or even in match or come close to what D Rose did at that age winning that award?
I thought Luka would do it, but it's really hard to do that. And at the time, if I'm not mistaken, Derek was in his 4th year in the league.
Yeah, he came in 2008.
Yeah, he came in 2008 because I remember, because in 2007, that's when I graduated from 8th grade, and that's when he graduated from Simeon. So, like, just following his whole career and his growth, like Drew said, you really had to be in the city to see it. I just wish I had appreciated it more as an NBA spectator. I was so busy watching, what was going down in Miami, because that really changed the way that I watched the league. And I started watching way more national games than I did even local. And I didn't really get a chance to appreciate it to like that All-Star weekend, seeing the buzz around him. But that MVP really kind of shaped, I think, the last decade of MVPs, because I really believe as great as he played that season and as deserving as he was of the award, and LeBron has been deserving every year of the award, but as deserving as he was for it, when he went into that press conference at the start of media day and was like, "Why not me?" I think he put a lot of attention on himself, and the fact that he backed it up with his play and led the Bulls to the best record in the league that year, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was definitely, it was the best record in the league and the best record in the East. Like that was a special time, and when you look back at it and you think that's the only time the Bulls have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals since the conclusion of the Michael Jordan era, it really deserves to be lauded in great retrospect more than it has been, and appreciated. It's sad the way that it ended, but at the same time, most guys don't ever get a chance to experience what he did, and he helped get a lot of young players paid. Like that season birthed the Derrick Rose rule. Whereas if you're an all-star or MVP or all NBA guy, That's why Trey and Luka and Kyrie and all these guys after their rookie deals were able to get max contracts, including Ben and Joel Embiid and so many more. So that was really a special time. I just wish I had appreciated it more, but it definitely shaped the way that I watched the rest of the league. And I think it shaped the MVP races that we've seen over the last 10 years, because now it is about narrative. And as great as his season was, he created a narrative, you know, and he rose to the occasion and won it.
And that's right quick. I'll let you talk, Steven, but that's what really resonates with me, and I think will always resonate with me from that year that he did come out before, because I remember people was looking like, no, who is you, dude? Like, yeah. But why are you talking like? Who are you to talk like this? People in Chicago was saying that, and you know, he went out and he at every step proved himself continuously and kept doing more and more and more until that, like I say, he had the best team. He was the best guy on the best team, at least in the regular season in their league. And they gave that Miami team hell whenever they saw them, and they played on the biggest stages throughout the season when they was on national TV stuff. They showed out. So that was what was meaningful about. That's what. Like you say, Drew, you had to be there. These kids who were, you know, rugrats back then, you know, 11 years ago, they come in and they talk this and that. They don't understand when you had to have been there. And, you know, it's weird to say that about something that happened just 11 years ago, but, you know, that's the case. And it's not always about the raw numbers, and not always is. You know, as much as we want it to be, sometimes it's got to be about more than that. It's got to be about inspiration and how you affect the league around you. The reason why when Rose first came back for real and he had that 50-point game in Minnesota and the whole league was behind him and LeBron was like, man, he's a superhero. All that dates back to when he became the MVP that year. And he said, why not me? He inspired so many people when he did that. And that's not going to be forgotten by real hoopers and by people who are following the league and in the league at that time.
Yeah, that was well said, man.
Yeah, for me, I always have an affinity, and I'm always inclined to point guards. And looking at just the history of the league, in any instance when you can have a young point guard drafted to your team, and you can have not just like the franchise or the talent evaluators on the team, but like the players that are spending day after day in the locker room with these players, with this player specifically, and the coach, and then the city inevitably, when everybody can like rally around a point guard specifically at the youngest point in their career, like they're still ripe, they're not at their prime. In my opinion, that's one of like the most beautiful things, because the point guard initiates everything. So when if the point guard has leadership skills to the extent to where everybody rallies around, like they all encompass that same exuberance and energy that they have, it's like watching like a stage play, because everything kind of falls in alignment with it. Anytime things swivel off base, it comes right back to them, and they bring it back to space, and then they get back to the business. And it's just a beautiful thing to see, honestly. You see it with Trae Young last season in the playoffs, his playoff ingratiation. I don't consider Doncic a point guard, but you see it with him. He's a primary ball handler. You see it with him. We see it with.
Well, look at with Ja. So
yeah, with
a lot of the comp with Ja dates back to the Rose.
Yep. We see it with Ja. We saw it with CP3. We saw it with Steph Curry and his playoff ingratiation. Like all of these random instances throughout the past handful of years of the league, when there's a point guard that's young and drafted to a team that just encompasses, the identity of the team, it's just a beautiful thing to see. But there's one word about Derrick Rose's MVP season that just resonates with me more than any other word. And it's just raw, sheer, just Chicago type audacity. Like the whole thing, just like, why not me? Like, just listen to that phrase, and he's standing and putting it in context with the time that he said it. You got prime Kobe, you got D Wade, You got LeBron James. You got prime Carmelo Anthony, prime Chris Paul, prime Darren Williams. Like all of these players that are like all-time greats. You got Kevin Durant. Like all of these players in the league at that specific time in 2011. And this is the Dirk Nowitzki. Like all these players, and he's the one that's coming away with not just the MVP, but also the best record. He was the best player at his position for the season. Like, and then to do what he ended up doing in the playoffs with that team, like there's just unparalleled levels of audacity from a kid playing at home. Like the audacity to play at home and put on the show that this dude did on a consistent basis, like that's just it's a dream come true. And it's just audacious, man. It's extremely audacious. And it wasn't
like you say, Steve. He put Chicago on his back. Not just the franchise, but the whole city. He put us on his back, and he was saying why not us as well as why not me, and that's what that whole era was about. It didn't end the way that we wanted to. We said we can't say that enough. It didn't end the way that we wanted to, but it was quite special when it was in the mix. And audacious. That's a good word, man. Audacity. That's a good word for what he brought and what he came from and what he was able to build. That's why we always love him. That's why he still gets the MVP chance when he comes to Chicago, because it was that special, and we always gonna remember that. But
Gabe, I'm so glad you brought up that preseason presser, man, or the preseason press conference where he mentioned that, because he was dead ass. Like he was saying it like y'all should be looking at me like I'm the MVP. Like what's wrong with y'all? Like the way he said it too, man. It will stick with me for a long time.
He forced the league to look at him. He really did. And Steven put it in a greater context too when you think about the number of stars that were in the league, and for him to do that. And one thing I'll say, like just going to games during that era, it was different. It was like not only is he one of us, but he's living out everybody's dream in the city of Chicago. And then you think about the chances. You think about all the stuff that had to go right to get him. Like it was a 1.7% chance that they win the lottery in 08. I was a freshman in high school. I'm like, ain't no way in hell, as great as it would be to see Derrick Rose play for the Bulls, ain't no way in hell he playing for the Bulls. And then all of a sudden, you see him in the top 3, and then it's them in Miami, and then you like, Miami got the number 2 pick, and you like, who got and it's like the Bulls, and that was to the playoffs. Like it was crazy. Man. I was like, it's no way. Everybody was trying to argue Rose or Beasley. It's like, it's no way. You gotta take him. You gotta take him if you John Paxson, and it paid off, and that showed it to me.
Yeah, definitely. And then he come the end of the rookie year. He starts his playoff career with the 30-point game against Boston. He's in the mix with that amazing series. That there's been some recap. There's been some looking back at that in recent weeks. That amazing series in 09 in the first round. But just the immediate impact and leaping forward from being like a 41-41 team to a couple years later winning 62 games. Like it was everything, man. And it was the last time when the Bulls were really at that center, like that really so much of the league was centering around what was going on in Chicago. And it looked like it was going to be that way for a while. They had a little bit of a rise again in 15 or so. He hits the shot against LeBron when he came back to Cleveland, and they had the second round series, and it should have went up 3-1 in that series, but couldn't, and everything went down from there. But it's we've talked about it before the show, man. I would love if Derrick could end his career here or have another run here in some way, but if he doesn't play another game as a Bull, he still is always a Chicagoan of the highest order. And like Gabe said, he literally lived a dream that we all had. Like we've all dreamt. You lying if you grew up here and never dreamt about winning basketball games for the Chicago Bulls. You had that dream in your heart. And
our apologies to Eddie Curry. Different players, different roles, though. Different players. Different roles.
Exactly.
Right. You wild.
Yeah.
It's funny. Most people don't even think about that no more.
Eddie, whole time Eddie at the crib, like, what about me, man? Like,
Right.
I paved the way. What's he talking?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up on that one, man. Really good show, guys. Really appreciate what all y'all brought to the table, man. We went about 2 hours in, man. I didn't expect to do that, but we really put it on. I hope y'all enjoyed it out there watching on YouTube or watching on Twitter as well. We streamed live on Twitter again today. Oh,
can I add one
you
more
said something, Steve?
Yeah, can I add one more thing real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Man, we got a championship winning women's basketball team that's on a quest to defend that thing this upcoming summer, starting this weekend. Like, I need to see more energy around the Chicago Sky. And we got another hometown kid that's leading that with Candace Parker. Like,
that is true.
There's not nearly enough energy around this team, and the fact that the Sky franchise is doing what it's doing, bringing back the pieces they need to at least have a viable attempt at, defending the crown in the WNBA. Like, there just needs to be an overall way more energy around this team. Like, everybody's going through there, whatever is about the Bulls having an early exit. Like, okay, like, it happens. That's part of the process for them. They had a great season, and then we just had a championship team that's coming back to defend it less than a month after the Bulls made their exit. Like, I just need to see more energy from not you guys, but just people in general around this championship team. Like, everybody asking about championship teams in Chicago. We haven't had one since the Cubs. We just had one this past summer. Like, come on, man. I need to see more energy around these women, especially Candace Parker, who's one of the best athletes of all time. Like, not just women, just athletes in general. Like, you can't ask for more.
Got the All-Star game coming too.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be talking about all that. I'll be glad you can bring that energy on Thursday. We'll have our WNBA preview Thursday night. Feel free to bring that energy, Steven. But we'll be back on Thursday previewing those Champion Sky and the WNBA season. And that'll be our next show. And just keep up with us on WARR Media, all the major platforms, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook and IG. And keep up with our guys. Put up the tags right quick. See, that's how you follow those guys. And just keep on rocking with us. Steve, check out Steven's what's the Phrygian? You got to help me out with the name. Phrygian. Okay, it's a little French. Okay, I got you. Phrygian point. He's classing up the joint.
You gotta put the bow tie on sometimes.
Right. Yeah, but that's on the Substack, the WARR Ready Substack. He got the final recap of the Bull season, and you're welcome to write anything you want on the Sky as well, man. If you want to help, help keep that movement going. Like you said, we definitely should be promoting that team more. And I think, as exciting as that run was, and I think they did get a lot of promotion out of the immediate run when they won the championship last fall, amongst a lot of other things happening in the city at the time. The Sox were in the playoffs. The Bears, of course, were, a question for better or worse in the fall. But, the Sky had their moment in the sun there, but they deserve even more as a defending champion They're gonna be getting their rings. They're gonna be putting that banner up in Wintrust, and that's gonna be happening all this weekend. So we should definitely support that and definitely make Chicago as great a basketball city as we are. Make sure that we don't lack when it comes to our women, because they deserve that shine for what they've done. But like I said, we'll be back to talk more about that on Thursday. Keep up with the guys until then, and keep up with us with WARR Media. In the meantime, y'all keep bouncing.